an Apache woman was marked for death, until a lone rancher fought back. The sun was just beginning to rise over the red canyons of New Coyote Colony, painting the jagged cliffs in warm shades of gold and orange. The desert air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of alien flora, the strange blue-green flowers that grew in small clusters near the rock formations. Among the canyons, a small ranch lay quietly, almost hidden from the dusty trail that led to the nearest colony settlement. This was Naya's home. Naya was a woman of quiet strength. She carried the heritage of her Apache ancestors in every careful step she took over the rocky ground, in the way she spoke softly but firmly, and in the knowledge that the land, strange as it was, spoke to her. She knew which plants could heal, which minerals could help her family, and how to move through the canyon without leaving footprints that could be tracked easily. Her life had always been one of patience, observation, and respect for the world around her. Her home was simple, a low, sturdy structure made from local rock and reinforced with alien wood that had grown stronger than steel. She had built it herself, with the help of her younger brother Mato and her small herd of bioengineered sheep that grazed on the cliffside grass. Life was peaceful, predictable, and safe, or so she thought. That morning, Naya noticed something strange as she stepped out onto her porch. A small glyph, unlike anything she had seen before, had been carved into the wooden fence near the edge of her property. Its lines were jagged, almost like a warning. She crouched, examining it closely. The glyph shimmered faintly in the sunlight, and as her fingers brushed the carved symbols, she felt a shiver run down her spine. "Mato!" she called softly, her voice carrying down the canyon. Her brother appeared quickly, wiping dirt from his hands. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the glyph. "Look." "Do you know what it means?" Mato frowned. "It's not anything I've seen in the colony or the old archives." "But it doesn't feel right." Naya nodded. Her intuition, honed by years of reading the land, told her that this was no ordinary mark. Someone had come here deliberately, leaving a warning, and not just any warning, this one was for her. As she looked around, the usual calm of the canyon seemed to shift. The wind felt sharper, and even the birds that normally circled overhead were silent. A sense of unease crept over her. She knew enough of the outer colonies to recognize the signs of danger. Certain corporations were notorious for taking land from those who had worked for it for generations. They didn't care about tradition, culture, or families. Their goal was profit, and sometimes their problems with people were solved quietly, without anyone noticing. Naya took a deep breath. She could not allow fear to control her, but she needed to act. First, she had to gather information. "Let's check the perimeter," she said, her voice firm. Mato nodded, and they began walking along the edge of the property. Naya's eyes scanned the ground for footprints or any sign of machines. She saw faint tire marks in the dusty soil, not from anything she or her family owned. Someone had driven a small hovercraft along the cliffside at night, carefully avoiding detection. Whoever had come here wanted to be noticed, but only just enough to send a message. That evening, as the twin moons of the planet rose, casting long shadows over the desert, Naya sat by her hearth, Mato beside her. They spoke in whispers, careful not to draw attention. "We need help," Mato said finally. "You can't face this alone." Naya's eyes were thoughtful. "Perhaps. But I won't run either. This land has been in our family for generations. We survived droughts, storms, even wild predators. We can survive this too." She did not know yet how, but she was determined to protect her home. The next morning brought a visitor. He appeared suddenly, riding a small, dust-covered vehicle that hummed softly as it moved over the rocks. His name was Elias, a lone rancher who had come from the distant colony of Silver Mesa. He had heard rumors of Naya's isolated ranch, of the unusual wealth of her land, and most importantly, of the rare minerals that grew near her property. But unlike the corporate agents, he was not here to seize the land. He was here for the animals, the ranching, and the possibility of friendship. Elias was tall, with a calm presence. He wore a simple, wide-brimmed hat that shaded his eyes, but the warmth in his smile was unmistakable. He had a small herd of genetically engineered goats with him, animals that could survive the harsh desert and help build new pastures. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying easily over the wind. "I hope I'm not intruding. My name is Elias. I heard there's a rancher here who knows the land better than anyone else." "That would be you, I think." Naya studied him carefully. She was wary as always, but there was nothing threatening in his stance or words. "I am Naya. What brings you here?" "Looking for a new start," he said simply, "and maybe to learn a thing or two from someone who really knows how to live here. I could use guidance, and I can offer help in return." For the first time in days, Naya felt a spark of hope. She realized that perhaps she did not have to face the threat alone. Over the next few days, Elias observed the ranch and the surrounding canyon. He noticed the glyphs and the tire marks and the unusual drone tracks that hovered in the distance. "They're watching you," he said one evening, crouching beside the fire.
"But not to harm you yet. They're testing."
"Trying to see how you react." Naya frowned. "I know. And I know they underestimated humans. They think we are weak because we are few." Elias nodded. "Then they're in for a surprise."
Humans are clever when they need to be. Sometimes brains win over machines every time.
Together, they began to plan. Not for violence, not for confrontation, but for clever resistance. Naya could use her knowledge of the land, and Elias could use his machines and tools in ways the corporate agents had not anticipated. One night, as they worked late, the canyon was alive with the calls of strange nocturnal creatures. Naya stood silently, listening to the alien symphony. She felt a deep connection to this place, the same connection her ancestors had felt on Earth centuries ago. It gave her strength, patience, and resolve. "They think they can scare me," she said softly. "But this land is not theirs to take. Not now. Not ever." Elias smiled. "Good. Because if they think a few machines and rules will frighten humans, they don't know what they're up against." As the moons climbed high, casting silver light over the rocks, Naya and Elias looked out over the canyon. Somewhere in the distance, a small hovercraft moved slowly, almost as if testing the terrain. But Naya did not feel fear. She felt readiness. She felt the quiet confidence that comes from knowing the land, the animals, and the strange alien world that surrounded her. Somewhere in the shadow of the canyon walls, a plan was forming, one that would use intelligence, patience, and creativity to protect life, home, and family. Naya would not fight with violence, but with wit, courage, and the quiet power of being human in a world that was trying to underestimate her. And for the first time since she noticed the glyph, Naya smiled. The threat was real. But so was the strength of humanity. The next morning, the canyon glowed with the first light of dawn. The air smelled of warm earth and alien blooms, soft purple flowers that bent under the weight of dew. Naya was already outside checking her sheep. She moved quietly, alert to every sound. The low hum of her hover fence, the soft wind through the canyon rocks, and the occasional click of small alien creatures scuttling across the sand. Elias had been awake since sunrise as well, tending to his goats and adjusting the small water extractor he had set up at the edge of the canyon. The machine pulled moisture from the air, providing fresh water without harming the land. Naya watched him from a distance. He worked with a careful patience, never rushing, always observing.
"Good morning, Naya," Elias called, his voice cheerful but soft. "The machines are ready."
The goats are happy, and I found a new pasture for your sheep.
Naya nodded, appreciating his help.
Thank you. But you don't have to do this. It's my land, my responsibility. Elias shook his head. Not when you have enough to worry about already. Besides, it's more interesting to work with someone who actually knows what they're doing. He smiled, a little teasing. And I admit, I could learn a thing or two from you. Naya allowed a small smile. We'll see. The morning passed with quiet work. Naya guided Elias to the safest grazing areas, where plants grew in patterns that indicated fresh water underground. She explained which plants were safe for the animals, which minerals could strengthen the soil, and how the canyon shifted after every storm. Elias listened closely, asking questions and taking notes. By midday, the sun was high, and the desert air had warmed. Naya paused under the shade of a rock overhang, watching her sheep wander freely. Then she noticed it. Another glyph, smaller than the first, etched into the trunk of a twisted alien tree at the edge of the canyon. Her stomach tightened. Elias followed her gaze. Leaving messages again? Yes, Naya said softly. And this time, it's closer. They're testing me, seeing how I react. Someone wants me to feel scared. Elias nodded slowly. Well, I don't think fear is your style, but we can use this. Naya raised an eyebrow. Use it? How? Ha 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 ha. Think about it. Elias said, they left marks to make you nervous. That tells us something. They care what you do. They are not invisible, not unbeatable. If they want to watch, we can make them see exactly what we want them to see. Her mind began turning over the possibilities. She had lived in this canyon all her life, moving silently, blending with the land. But if someone was watching, she could use it to her advantage. That evening, they sat by the fire outside the ranch. The twin moons rose, casting silver light over the red cliffs. Elias worked on a small device, a simple drone that could float quietly above the canyon floor. He explained it to Naya, showing how it could take pictures of the glyphs and the tracks, recording every movement. We don't need to confront them directly, Elias said. We can gather information, learn their patterns, find out who they are before making any decisions. Naya nodded. Knowledge before action. That's how my people survived for centuries. Observation first, then understanding. For the next few days, they worked together. Naya taught Elias to move silently, to notice changes in the desert that others would overlook. Elias showed Naya how to use technology in subtle ways, placing sensors disguised as rocks, setting up small cameras in the canyon, and tracking unusual drones without touching them. One evening, a soft, whirring sound broke the quiet. Naya froze, her eyes scanning the cliffs. Elias, already alert, pointed toward a shadow moving among the rocks. It was a small corporate drone hovering silently, its cameras trained on the ranch. They're watching, Elias whispered. But we're ready. Naya felt a thrill of anticipation rather than fear. Then we'll make them think they see things that aren't there. We'll confuse them, slow them down, and learn everything we can. That night, they set their plan into motion. Using mirrors and light-reflecting devices, they created illusions of movement around the ranch, Holographic images of animals appeared to roam in places where none were present. Even the wind and shadows were used to mask real movements and create false trails. The next morning, Naya and Elias discovered the results. The corporate agents' drones had recorded all of their illusions. They were confused, trying to understand what they saw. Tracks led in circles. Shadows appeared in impossible places. Their reports to headquarters must have seemed absurd. Naya laughed quietly. "They think this land is haunted." Elias grinned. "Humans are clever that way. Sometimes all it takes is a little creativity to turn fear into advantage." Their work soon attracted attention from the small colony nearby. Other settlers were curious about the unusual patterns of light and movement they saw from a distance. One by one, they approached, cautious but interested. Scientists, engineers, and other ranchers began offering help, sharing knowledge, providing tools, and giving advice. Naya watched all of this, realizing something important. She did not have to face the threat alone. Humans were strongest when they worked together, using intelligence, skill, and courage instead of brute force. But the corporate agents were not giving up easily. They tried different tactics, sending small reconnaissance teams, using new drones, even attempting to disrupt their power sources. Each time, Naya and Elias adapted, finding nonviolent ways to counteract every move. At the edge of the canyon, Elias built a simple device to mimic the sound of distant machinery, leading the drones away from the ranch. Naya planted alien plants in patterns that would confuse infrared sensors. They worked in silence, like shadows, always staying one step ahead. One evening, as they rested after a long day, Naya looked at Elias. "I never thought I would meet someone like you," she said softly. "Someone who understands that strength is more than fighting." Elias shrugged. "I've seen enough people underestimate humans. They think numbers and machines make them strong. But sometimes, all it takes is a little patience, creativity, and understanding the land." Naya smiled. "Then we are stronger than they know." The days turned into weeks. The canyon remained calm on the surface, but beneath it, a quiet battle of wits was being fought. Naya and Elias studied every movement, every drone, and every glyph, learning the patterns of their opponents. Each day brought new challenges, but also new victories. Not through force, but through ingenuity. One morning, Naya noticed something unusual. A small group of alien creatures, previously shy and hidden, were moving closer to the ranch. They were curious, perhaps sensing the energy of human ingenuity. Naya saw an opportunity. She and Elias carefully observed their behavior, using it to further confuse the corporate drones. Every movement of the creatures, every pattern of light, every sound became part of a larger strategy. Elias marveled at her skill. "You've turned the canyon itself into a tool," he said. "The land, the animals, the light, everything is part of your plan." Naya nodded. "This is home. And home is worth protecting." By the end of the part, Naya and Elias had established a rhythm. The ranch was safe for now, and the corporate faction remained at bay, unable to understand or predict the humans' clever tactics. Their bond grew stronger, built on respect, trust, and shared determination. And somewhere in the distance, the corporate headquarters continued to monitor, unaware that they had underestimated the cunning of two humans, their connection to the land, and the quiet power of creativity over force. For the first time, Naya felt that victory was possible, not through confrontation, not through fighting, but through intelligence, patience, and the human spirit. And with Elias by her side, she knew that no matter what came next, they could face it together. The desert canyon was quiet that morning, but the air felt electric. Naya stood on the ridge above her ranch, the wind tugging gently at her dark hair. The twin moons were still faintly visible in the sky, pale against the soft glow of dawn. Below, her sheep wandered calmly, unaware of the subtle games being played around them. Beside her, Elias adjusted the small, lightweight drone he had built. It buzzed softly as it hovered over the canyon floor, scanning for unusual activity. The machine was simple but clever, designed to gather information without drawing attention. Elias had spent hours programming it to mimic the natural movements of the desert wind, so anyone watching would think it was just another trick of sunlight and air currents. Naya's eyes scanned the horizon. "They're coming," she said quietly. "Not with soldiers or weapons, but with small, silent machines." She had noticed patterns over the past few weeks, drones moving in precise lines, checking the canyon floor, the rocks, even the alien trees. Whoever was sending them had intelligence, but they had never faced humans who understood the land so deeply. Elias nodded. "Then it's time we remind them what humans can do without violence." Together, they began setting up subtle illusions. Naya used her knowledge of the terrain to create patterns with rocks, sand, and alien plants that would confuse sensors. Elias deployed small holographic devices that projected shadows of animals in impossible places. The combined effect was mesmerizing. Drones would follow paths that led nowhere, misinterpret signals, or circle endlessly. By midday, they observed the results. Drones hovered over false tracks, cameras captured nothing but shifting shadows, and the corporate agents' attempts to map the ranch were failing. Naya felt a quiet satisfaction. This was not about fighting. It was about intelligence, creativity, and patience. "They think they're smart," Naya said, smiling faintly, "but they have no idea." Elias grinned. "That's the thing about humans. We see possibilities where others see limits." While they worked, Naya noticed movement near the edge of the canyon. A small group of alien creatures, nocturnal by nature, had crept closer, seemingly drawn by the activity around the ranch. They were delicate, winged animals with translucent bodies that shimmered in the sunlight. Naya studied them carefully. Their flight patterns were rhythmic, predictable, and yet beautiful. "Do you think they understand what we're doing?" Elias asked quietly, watching the creatures dance in the air.
Not in the way we do, Naya replied. But they react.
"And reaction is enough." She bent down, gently placing small, reflective strips near the creatures' paths. The strips reflected sunlight in patterns that further confused the drones. Even the smallest animal became a part of their strategy, an ally in ways the corporate agents could never predict. By evening, they had completed their plan for the day. Naya and Elias sat outside the ranch, the twin moons casting silver shadows across the rocks. The canyon was alive with quiet movement, the subtle hum of machines, the soft flutter of alien wings, and the rustle of the desert grass. "They think this land is impossible to conquer," Elias said, leaning back. "And they're right." Naya nodded, feeling the truth of his words. "They don't understand connection, not to the land, not to life itself." Ooh. That is our strength. Over the next few days, their strategy grew more sophisticated. They used natural phenomena, the shifting sunlight, wind patterns, and even the echoing sounds of the canyon to create illusions that suggested movement where there was none. Sensors recorded everything, but the humans' clever designs led them in circles. The corporate faction began sending more drones, trying different strategies, but every attempt failed. One afternoon, Naya noticed something unusual. A drone hovered higher than usual, its sensors clearly scanning for heat signatures. Elias joined her at the ridge. "They're learning," he said. "They're adapting to our patterns." "Then we adapt faster," Naya replied. They worked quickly, using knowledge of the desert's heat and shadows to hide real movements and exaggerate false ones. Small holographic decoys were placed on cliff edges, and lightweight reflective panels created illusions of large moving figures in the distance. Even the animals played a role. Sheep, goats, and the alien creatures moved subtly to reinforce the illusions. By nightfall, they observed the results. The drone's readings were completely unreliable. The agents could not differentiate reality from illusion. Naya felt a quiet pride. This was victory without confrontation, proof that intelligence and creativity could surpass brute force. That night, as they rested by the fire, Elias turned to Naya. "You know, most people think strength comes from numbers or weapons. They forget that cleverness, patience, and understanding the environment can be just as powerful." Naya smiled, tossing a small piece of firewood into the flames. "It always has been. My ancestors knew this. The land, the sky, the animals, they all teach lessons if you listen." As they spoke, a small hovercraft approached from a distant ridge. Naya tensed. The corporate faction was testing again, but Elias was already prepared. He activated a series of lights and holograms, creating the illusion of a larger, more complex ranch activity. Shadows danced across the canyon, moving in patterns that suggested more humans and animals than were actually present. The hovercraft hovered uncertainly, scanning, then retreated. Whoever was controlling it was clearly puzzled. Naya laughed softly. "They think the land itself is alive. That we have forces they cannot see." Elias chuckled. "Let them think that." Fear is a powerful tool when combined with imagination. Over the following week, they continued refining their tactics. They began using the canyon's natural echoes to send misleading sounds, mimicking the movement of machines, people, and animals. Small reflective disks were scattered in ways that created false heat signatures for infrared sensors. Even the wind and shifting sand became tools to manipulate the drone's tracking systems. The corporate agents were relentless. They sent more drones, tried different scanning methods, and even attempted to disrupt the ranch's power supply. Each time, Naya and Elias found nonviolent solutions. When the water extractor failed temporarily, they used gravity-fed channels to provide water for the animals. When drones flew too close, holographic projections created diversions that led them away from sensitive areas. Naya realized something important during these days. Strength was not just physical or technological. It was creativity, intelligence, and the ability to adapt faster than others. Humans could turn the impossible into the possible, simply by observing, thinking, and acting. One night, as the twin moons rose over the canyon, Naya and Elias sat silently, watching the stars reflected in the still water of a small desert pond. "Do you ever wonder," Naya said quietly, "if they will ever understand us?" Elias shook his head. "No, and that is our advantage. They expect us to act like them, to follow their rules. But we make our own rules. That is something they can never predict." Naya nodded, feeling a quiet confidence. The corporate faction could try all they wanted, but they were up against something they did not understand: human ingenuity, patience, and the deep connection to life and land that gave strength without violence. By the end of Part 3, the ranch had become a fortress, not of walls and weapons, but of strategy, observation, and clever design. The corporate agents were still present, still watching, but they were confused, frustrated, and powerless. Naya and Elias had turned every advantage the canyon offered into a tool for protection, And in that quiet desert, under the twin moons, Naya felt a surge of hope. She was not alone. Humans could be small in number, weak in appearance, and underestimated by technology. Yet, with creativity, patience, and connection, they could achieve what seemed impossible. The battle was far from over, but Naya knew the truth. It was not strength or size that won wars. It was mind, heart, and ingenuity, and in that, humans had no equal. The sun rose slowly over the canyon, bathing the cliffs in soft shades of orange and pink. From the ridge, Naya and Elias could see the shimmer of alien flowers and the dust trails of their sheep and goats below. The ranch was quiet, almost peaceful, but both knew the quiet was only temporary. The corporate drones had grown more persistent. They flew closer now, hovering at the edges of the canyon, scanning and analyzing. But something had changed. Their patterns showed hesitation. They were confused, trying to understand the strange movements and illusions that Naya and Elias had set up. "It's working," Elias said, adjusting the drone that hovered just above the ridge. "They don't know what to do next. Everything we do, they misinterpret." Naya nodded.
Yes.
"But if we continue alone, we can only do so much. There are limits to what two people can manage." That afternoon, Naya made a decision. She sent messages to nearby colonists, discreetly asking for help. She knew her skills and Elias's inventions were effective, but together with others, they could turn their clever defenses into something far greater. Within a few days, settlers began to arrive. Some were scientists who studied alien flora and fauna. Others were engineers, skilled at building and improving machines. A few were ranchers like Elias, experienced in handling animals and managing land. Each one brought a unique skill set, eager to contribute to protecting the ranch. When they first arrived, the newcomers were cautious. The canyon's terrain was difficult, and the air was dry and sharp, but Naya greeted them warmly, explaining the situation. "The land is being watched," she said simply. "But if we work together, we can protect it without fighting. We will use intelligence, creativity, and our connection to life." The colonists listened carefully. They admired her knowledge and calm confidence. One scientist, Leora, asked, "How do we begin?" Naya smiled. "First, observe. Then, think. Every problem has a solution if we look at it from the right angle." Together, they started setting up a coordinated system of protection. Drones were programmed to mimic natural movements of wind and sunlight. Holograms projected moving shadows across the canyon walls. Even the alien creatures were gently encouraged to participate, their movement patterns confusing the corporate sensors. Elias worked with the engineers to design simple, non-intrusive devices that amplified natural sounds and light reflections. They placed mirrors that redirected sunlight, creating false shadows that appeared to move across the canyon. The scientists experimented with plant patterns, using alien flora to hide sensors and create natural camouflage. Each day, the canyon seemed more alive. The corporate drones hovered and scanned, but they could not make sense of what they saw. Reports sent back to headquarters were filled with confusion. Something about the ranch was impossible to map or predict. One afternoon, Naya and Elias observed a small group of drones approaching from the canyon entrance. The colonists were ready. Using holographic projections, mirrors, and strategically placed animals, they created the illusion of a large number of humans and machines moving through the rocks. The drones followed false tracks, captured impossible movements, and eventually retreated, unable to gather any useful information. The colonists cheered quietly. They were amazed at how effective these simple, clever methods could be. It was not force, but intelligence and collaboration that won the day. Naya took a moment to observe the colony. They worked together like a single organism, each part contributing to a larger purpose. Humans, she realized, were strongest when united by creativity and understanding, not by weapons or power. Over the next few days, they continued to improve their defenses. Each colonist contributed ideas. Engineers built devices that reflected heat, making it difficult for drones to detect living beings. Scientists analyzed the canyon's natural patterns, using echoes, wind shifts, and animal behavior to predict drone movements. Ranchers helped train the sheep and goats to move in ways that reinforced the illusions. The corporate agents tried new tactics. They sent faster drones that attempted to scan the canyon from above. But Naya and Elias anticipated this. They had created vertical illusions, using tall rocks and reflective panels to make shadows appear at impossible angles. The drones misread the data and flew away, frustrated. At night, the colony gathered around a fire near the ranch. They shared stories, ideas, and lessons. Leora, the scientist, said, "I never thought plants and animals could be part of such a clever defense. This is incredible." Elias smiled. "The land itself is alive. It can teach us, protect us, and work with us." "All we have to do is understand it," Naya added, "and humans are part of that system. Together, we can achieve what seems impossible alone." As the weeks passed, the ranch became a symbol of cleverness and unity. The corporate faction continued to observe, but they were clearly uncertain. Their drones flew erratically, their reports filled with confusion. They had underestimated humans' ability to adapt, cooperate, and outthink technology. One morning, Naya noticed a larger hovercraft approaching from the canyon entrance. The colony prepared as usual. This time, they used everything they had learned: holograms, mirrors, reflective strips, animal movements, and even wind and sound patterns worked together to create an illusion of a massive human presence. The hovercraft hovered uncertainly, scanned for a long time, and then withdrew. The colony erupted in quiet celebration. Their efforts had succeeded. They were not only protecting Naya's ranch, but also showing the power of human ingenuity. Elias looked at Naya, his expression proud. "You've inspired them," he said. "Humans are capable of incredible things when they work together." Naya nodded. "We all have strengths. When we combine them, no force can underestimate us." By the end of Part 4, the ranch had transformed. It was no longer just a home or a small farm. It was a living system of intelligence, creativity, and cooperation. The corporate faction was still present, but they were powerless against a community united by cleverness and understanding. And Naya realized something important. The greatest strength of humans was not in weapons, machines, or numbers. It was in their ability to think, adapt, and work together. That was a power no one could take away. As the sun set over the canyon, casting long shadows across the rocks, Naya and Elias stood on a ridge, looking down at the colony below. Lights flickered, animals moved in carefully planned patterns, and holograms danced across the canyon walls. "They'll never understand us," Naya said quietly. "And that's exactly why we will always be stronger." The canyon was alive, protected by humans who had learned the greatest lesson of all. Ingenuity, patience, and unity could overcome any threat, even one armed with the most advanced technology. And for the first time since the glyph appeared on her fence, Naya felt a calm certainty. The ranch, the canyon, and the colony were safe. They had shown that violence was unnecessary when minds worked together, when humans trusted each other and the land. The corporate agents would continue to watch, continue to test, but they had already lost in ways they could not understand. Naya smiled, knowing that what they had built here, clever, resilient, and united, was a testament to humanity's true strength.